what is the response rate generally for handwritten letters?
Historically, what we've seen with a first class letter, it's full postage, like you'd normally get, anywhere between like 1 to 1.5%, sometimes a little bit more, where your traditional printed mail, I've seen it as low as like 0.1% or less. It is more expensive. We'll just be 100% honest. It's not 35 cents, 40 cents, but to spend 3 to 4 times the cost to get 10x or more on your return on your response rate, I mean, that's how our primary form of marketing has been done for the last 5 years.
So I'm super excited today because I have Justin Dossey on here with me today, who I will let him introduce like what he does and everything, but co-owner of Ballpoint Marketing. And today I'm so excited because he's going to break down a ton of information for us to talk about mail marketing, door hangers, all the things. So really excited to have you on here, Justin. Tell everyone a little bit about you and about the business, how it kind of started.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here and do this with you guys. So, like Elise said, I'm Justin. I'm one of the co-owners. I own a couple companies with my brother here at Ballpoint, our answering service called Porter. Um, and yeah, I mean, our goal the last couple of years has been how to make direct mail as effective as possible and get the highest results out of that for your business.
I love that. Was so short, sweet, and simple, and that was perfect. So, you guys, how many mail houses do you guys have?
Uh, well, just the one. I mean, just here at Ballpoint in St. Louis, right outside of St. Louis, Missouri. So we've got a warehouse with, I think it's 84, 85, something like that, handwriting machines. So it's on the other side of this wall from me, but whole warehouse with all these handwriting machines just running literally 20 hours a day right now.
And I guess I have to ask you, going further into like why. I know you guys do postcards, but why? I mean, those machines cannot be cheap, and so like, why go
No.
into why go into the handwriting letters? Was there something that you like tested, or like, I guess, can you tell me kind of the
Yeah.
story behind why you guys did that?
Yeah, great question. So it's funny. All of our businesses so far have come out of a necessity that we have seen in our own businesses. So we could talk about Call Porter at another time, but essentially, this business started. My younger brother and business partner Ryan started it out of his house in Indiana. Actually, not too far where you guys are at, over in Beech Grove, his first house that he bought, and he was really looking for a way to improve his own marketing. And so traditional printed marketing that you would see that is very cheap, it's very quick, just it's so saturated currently, and it has been for a while, and it's very impersonal, right? Like you're getting a pre-printed postcard or something. There's not a personal feel, a personal touch to it. So our thought was is like, how do we make this better? And funny story is Ryan's first direct mail marketing campaign was a handwritten letter done by some local guy, right? You just hired him. He wrote it out. He gave you all the stamps, the envelopes. You had to fold, seal, lick, put the stamps on, do all the work yourself, essentially, other than the handwriting part. But this guy was physically sitting there handwriting stuff, and it performed very, very well. So our thought was like, okay, how do we make this more streamlined, less carpal tunnel issues, right? Your handwriting stuff. So how do we prevent that? And I believe the way it originally started is we found a company that just does signatures. And that's what they had done since like the 70s. And they were used in like government buildings and things like that for signing documents en masse. And he just asked the guy, he's like, could this write a letter? Like, is that something that's doable? And after some back and forth in programming, they're able to figure out how to write a full letter. And after that, it just kind of grew, where at first it was used internally for his own business, and it was like the competitive advantage he didn't want to give away. And we had kind of chatted through some stuff and had some friends reach out like, hey, you guys are getting really good results. How do I get on that train? And so from there, it kind of grew to family, friends that were doing marketing and needed some assistance. And then really about 3.5 years ago or so, we moved everything from Indianapolis to St. Louis, and I took over all the day-to-day operations to help grow and build everything. So in 3 years, went from 10 machines to 80 machines, and went from 2 employees, me being one of them, to like 15 employees working 20 hours a day at this point.
Oh my gosh. And tell everyone a
Yeah.
little bit about like, so you were having some, what does the process look like for getting a ballpoint letter? Cause you said a couple key things in there that I really want people to know that makes it special. So go ahead and kind of talk through the process of they order one and what does that look like?
Yeah. So, first steps like on our website, you pick your product, pick your handwriting style, you pick your postage rate, um, order it, and then our team reaches out from there to gather your list, couple details on signature name, phone numbers, everything that you need to really put a mail campaign together. And from there, we get digital proofs together for you so you can see what your pieces are going to look like before you actually order anything and make sure everything looks good. You don't have any issues, or if there's any tweaks you want to make. From there, we go into production. I did make a comment earlier that printed mail, like your typical pre-printed stuff, is very fast. Like you could print, 50,000 pieces in a day. Because these are handwritten, they typically take a week to get done on a typical campaign. So there's a little bit more involved, like programming on the back end, handwriting machines running everything and stuff. But then what we'll do here is we'll write everything, envelope, letter, we design it all in house, print everything, even fold it, seal it, put a stamp on it, and it's ready to go. So all you have to do is drop it in the mail locally wherever you're located.
Well, and what's really great if you are a DealMachine member is that Ballpoint has given us a great opportunity to actually have their product in our product. So you guys actually can just easily go in, put what kind
Yep.
of message you want, and then just send it off one off, and you can have it printed by these guys. And that I think is just so special. And I love the main point of what I wanted everyone to hear is I love the real stamp and I love the
Yep.
actual because even if you use a handwriting font, like I can tell when it's laser printed.
Totally.
And
Totally. You absolutely can.
and with your guys's front, like one, the envelope, like you said, looks so fun, and it's nothing like you're gonna see. Like if I know when I get like a basic white envelope, like I'm not gonna,
Right.
I'll probably end up shredding it. But if it, like
Right.
you guys said, looks like a party invite and it's handwritten, I'm like, oh crap, did I forget who this is? Or like, what did I
Yeah.
forget?
Who's sending me something that I don't know what it is? I'm going to open this.
Yes.
And that's a great point too. Like one thing that we're really good about is trying to be as innovative as possible and come up with stuff that no one else is doing. It's been funny to see like other people mimic what we do. But our goal is like fun, whimsical designs, like you said, and it's really designed to not even look like a piece of mail, or not a piece of mail, a piece of marketing when you get it. Um, we've got, the party designs, we've got the designs through DealMachine. Um, and, kind of our whole approach to it is like, how do we get the highest open rate, which is ultimately going to give you the highest response rate on those?
So going into that, what is the response rate generally for handwritten letters?
Great question. I will say it is different based on where you live, um, time of year and list, but historically what we've seen with a first class letter, so like first class full postage like you'd normally get, is anywhere between like 1 to 1.5%, sometimes a little bit more, where your traditional printed mail, I've seen it as low as like 0.1% or less. So it is more expensive. Like we'll just be 100% honest. It's not, 35 cents, 40 cents, but to spend 3 to 4 times the cost to get 10x or more on your return on your response rate, that's how our primary form of marketing has been done for the last 5 years.
Well, and you can just see that through some of the people you work with. Like I know you worked with Lily, and she did like a whole thing
Yeah.
about her ballpoint marketing and how many responses she got. And I think she ended up getting like a multiple unit deal from you
Yeah.
guys.
From
So
a very small targeted campaign too, you know?
that's huge.
So yeah. Yeah. And it's the list quality. And the thing that I like about it a lot too is like, even if someone is not maybe ready to sell immediately, right? Like they get that letter, they might not be quite ready to go, quite ready to sell. We find people hold on to that letter longer because it is handwritten, because you can tell it's written with a pen. It's not like the third and final notice or any of the other ones that you typically see that I get at my house all the time. So last house I bought, actually, the guy was a referral from a family member, but I had mailed him 6 months prior, and he had our letter sitting on his table. And I was like, oh, that's funny. I wrote that letter. And he's like, oh, I didn't even know this was the same thing. And so it's, he held on to that for, I think it was like 6 months until he was actually ready to sell. And just because as a friend of a family, he reached out to me personally. But we see that all the time where people hold on to those letters because it has that personal approach that a lot of people don't do anymore.
Yeah, I feel like the people that, and this is just a hypothesis, but I feel like older people as well would feel better responding to something like that than a postcard because it is such a vulnerable place for them.
It is. Yeah. And you're not wrong at all. Like, we find people too, like, particularly, I don't know, 35 and up, 40 and up, maybe, really appreciate it because it's putting personalization back into something that's so impersonal typically, right? Like, I get ads all the time. I know you do. Everyone that's watching this gets crap mail all the time. There's no take me off the list. There's no like, no do not mail list like you would have with texting or calling. I think you and I were talking about that yesterday, actually. Um, and so if you're getting the mail anyway, like, might as well make it as effective and stand out above all the other stuff that goes out.
So you just touched on a point that I really wanted to talk about because people, like you mentioned, like ballpoint marketing is going to be a little bit more expensive than doing cold
Yeah.
calling or texting. What do you have to say when people do talk about that? Like, do you feel like there's a certain, I guess, how do they know that they should invest in ballpoint marketing? Is there how much mail they should be sending that would make sense for them or that type
Yeah.
of thing?
Great question. The way so I'm big on like reverse engineering things. Like, if I know what my end result is, I can usually work backwards and figure out how to make it happen. Right. So same thing with mail. So if my goal is, let's just say, a deal a month, just to start, right? Like, I'm starting out, I'm new, I'm just trying to get some deals done. The numbers that we see these are, again, estimates, but fairly standard and consistent across the country. Is if you're in a major metro like LA, Chicago, Denver, Dallas, New York City, like big areas, it's going to take more mail, right? And our average, I think, cost per acquisition that we see in those markets is anywhere from like $5,000 to $7,000 or so. So you're sending, 4,000 to 6,000 pieces of mail typically to get a deal done. But the spreads are a lot higher, right? Like, if you're in those markets, you're not seeing Midwestern prices like I'm used to and like you guys are used to. You're seeing, spreads of 100,000 or more sometimes on some of these deals. In your more, as you'd call them, like tertiary markets, places under 1 million in people in each city, those are like anywhere from, I don't know, 2,500 to $4,000 per deal. Where like what we're seeing down in Baton Rouge, where we market currently, is about $2,400 a deal right now. So for me, like, I know per deal consistently, I can spend $2,500 to $3,500 or so to expect a deal, and expect that consistently. Once I have that marketing consistently going out on a monthly basis, following up on my leads, things like that.
So to your personal point, going through that, how many touch points how long is your regular ballpoint like campaign for when you're reaching out to leads? You said monthly. How many touch
Good
points?
question. Yeah. So some of this data actually came from David Lecco at one of our events that he came to and spoke, that he shared that he saw within DealMachine. So this is great data for you guys as well if you don't use this already. But you want at least 3 touch points per list. So what the data that he had kind of provided is, like, if people are mailing a property only one time or a list only one time, about 14% of the opportunity you could get out of that list is going to happen. If you make it to month 3, that number jumps up to 50%. So the consistency and marketing aspect of it, and like what we typically do, is we'll mail it 3, maybe 4 times. And what we'll do is we'll monitor our response rate. And as it starts to dip and starts to dive down, that's when we'll revamp that list and do some
Oh,
new
nice.
stuff. Now, we're a little complicated. You don't have to make it this complicated, but what we'll do is we'll then come back 3 or 4 months later and hit that list again with like a postcard, something that's cheaper, to continuously be in front of people. And our products are kind of set up that way to where it goes through a 7-month sequence from postcards and letters, where you get a different letter, different postcard every single month, same day of each month, but you can change your list at any time. So as soon as you notice like the effectiveness going down a little bit, you can revamp, pull new data, add some niche lists in there to really help keep that marketing going. But consistency is a big part of it. I could mail someone once and never see a deal from it. But I know historically, if I'm mailing at least 3 months, when we start a campaign, it typically takes 60 to 90 days for deals to start to come from that first batch. So it is a consistency game to make sure you're not like starting and stopping and starting and stopping every time you get a deal, then trying to finish it. So our goal is like, even when we're getting deals under contract, we're still sending out marketing, understanding that it's, a 60 to 90 day play until leads start to, or not leads, but until contracts start to get signed off of that campaign.
I love that because that just made me feel better about what I've been doing in my campaigns, because like I start with a ballpoint letter and then go to a postcard, and I'll do postcard for maybe like I'll switch out the postcards, but then I always go back to a ballpoint letter, because it, like to your point, like you're switching it up to see they're not getting the same thing every month. You don't know which one might actually catch their attention. It's probably going to be
Exactly.
a handwritten letter, but you don't, just in case it isn't, like you have some backups to still be
Yeah.
in their face.
Yeah. And because even our postcards have handwritten, are actually all handwritten as well, but each one's got like a different, not call to action, but a different reason why they might want to sell. And it could be timing of when you're hitting them. It could be, hey, this card or this letter, like that message, that's exactly why I want to sell and why I want to get out of this property. I've seen these guys a couple times. I'm now familiar with their company. I'm familiar with their brand. I've looked them up online, whatever it might be. That's why we end up getting deals sometimes 6 months or a year later from when we mailed them, because they just kept that piece of handwritten mail. They've seen it consistently, and then they're reaching out once they're ready.